Okay, let's get this show on the road again for the 4th of July weekend coming up. Here's my play-in music for show number 75. You are listening to KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, at 103.3 FM and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. And this is the Midnight Skeptic. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not, repeat, not necessarily the views of KPCA or any of its affiliates. Okay, this is show number 75 of the Midnight Skeptic. This will be broadcast on Sunday, July 3rd. Today is Wednesday, the 29th of June, and it's about 8:30, and like the intro said over the music, the views of the Midnight Skeptic, which are, by the way, the correct views to have for everybody. They're not necessarily the views of Petaluma Community Access. Okay. Send all suggestions of how I could make this show better. Not that that's even possible, or suggestions about things I should rant and rave about. And then plus send all death threats and hate mail to the Midnight Skeptic at gmail.com. Okay, now that that's all out of the way, let's get the shout outs out of the way. All my international listeners, get me on Spotify, which is accumulated, or I forget what the word is for that, but it's anchor.fm. And through them, I have 2 listeners in the UK, 2 in Ireland, 2 in Germany, 1 in Spain, 1 in the Czech Republic. And then over on the other side of the earth, I got 2 in New Zealand and 2 in Australia. Okay. The Sonora Gang. Okay. And I'll be seeing you guys this coming weekend. Bob and Sandy Fisher, Brad and Martha Fisher. Martha's a nurse up there. Please wear your PPE. COVID has not gone away yet, and I hope there's not been an outbreak of monkeypox up there. Anyway, Darrell Larson, Judy May, Leonidas Maciel, Kathy Francis, and then a couple of newbies, Jennifer and Tiffany Gleason, who are the daughters of a friend of mine up there, John Gleason, and then down in Mexico, an ex-Sonoraite, Rosie Lopez Negrete. Okay, locally, like here in Petaluma and the environs, Nariman, Tom and Nancy Throw, Keith and Cody K. All right. Dennis and Megan down in Tiburon, and Art Kuznets, who attends B'nai Israel here in town. Pacific is represented by Stan and Kathy, and Sebastopol, Rich and Kathy, and in Sacramento, Dave and Rosita Takach, and then Mickey Huff's up there, and I'm sure he's on summer break from his position as a professor at Diablo Valley College now, and he's the godfather of Project Uncensored. They come out every year with a book about the stories that have gone unreported, insufficiently reported, or wrongly reported in the news by our wonderful journalists here in this country. All right. And he has his own show here at KPCA, this station that I'm on, Wednesdays 1 to 2. And then it's repeated over on KPFA over in Berkeley on Fridays from 1 to 2. And they're at 94.1 FM. Okay. And let's see, Arkansas, Shannon Reed, and then down in Arizona, my brother Bran and his wife Mina, and their daughter Andrea, my niece. She's a nurse, and I admonish you to wear your PPE and make sure there's no evil monkeypox breaking out around there, and especially her husband, Tim, and their 3 little terrorists. And I hope they're all doing well. And all the way over to Florida, Nelson and Alice Lydell, and they're in Sarasota. And then in Edgewater, Amelia Beamer. And then tootling up the East Coast, Herr Dr. David Rubin in the Raleigh-Durham area, and then all the way up to Long Island, where Geraldine Goldfinger lives. All right. I hate to do this, but I have to start off with bad news. Dickens area, meaning the writer, Dickens. Oh man, I'm having a brain freeze on his first name. Charles Dickens? I think so. Yeah. Dickens era diseases are making a comeback due to anti-vaccine sentiment. The anti-vaxxers strike again. Okay, what are all these Dickens era diseases? Doctors are seeing a return of whooping cough, measles, typhoid, scarlet fever, diphtheria, and mumps. Thank you, anti-vaxxers and stupid MAGA heads. MAGA heads, just drink your Trump bleach, and that'll keep those diseases away from you. I'm joking. Bleach doesn't do anything for you. And don't listen to the orange sociopathic bloat bag or any of his America's Frontline Doctors group for your medical advice. As a matter of fact, one of them, the America's Frontline Doctors Group, Dr. Joe Ladapo, is now I'm brain freeze time. The title of the head doctor of the state of Florida, Surgeon General. Okay, DeSantis, the idiot governor of Florida, appointed him Florida's Surgeon General. And I've done segments on him on past shows, maybe 8 or 9 shows ago. He's completely unqualified to hold the post that he does in Florida. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. Okay. Well, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down New York's law on carrying a concealed weapon. And they struck down Maine's no funding of religious schools law. God, guns, and next they'll strike down Obergefell decision. Then the horrible right-wing Supreme Court will complete the hateful GOP agenda that oh boy, this is a rough night for me. Obama mistakenly said out loud, even though he's completely right, guns, God, and gays was the agenda of the Republican Party. And he was completely right. And this right-wing, 6 of the U.S. Supreme Court right-wing justices are making that come true. God, guns, and gays. Okay. They haven't revisited the Obergefell decision yet, but it's coming. It's coming after they're striking down the abortion law, Roe v. Wade. Other decisions that have been on the books for a long time. If Clarence Thomas has his way, these decisions will all be revisited. For instance, Griswold versus Connecticut. That was the one where women were able to get anti-pregnancy pills. There's another word for that that's more apropos. Let's see. But anyway, Lawrence versus Texas. That was the one where people were free to have sexual relations, consensual sexual relations with whomever you want, whether same sex or not. And then Obergefell versus Hodges. That's the name of the court case that allowed for same-sex marriage. If the conservative wing of the U.S. Supreme Court has its way, these decisions will all be, quote unquote, revisited, meaning overturned. Okay. Let's see. These decisions are all liable to fall in this dystopian Supreme Court, Republican-appointed Supreme Court justices. Okay. Clarence Thomas has emerged as the head creep of all of them. Okay. CFI, the Center for Inquiry, back in Amherst, New York, which is the umbrella organization that is the parent of CSI, Center for Skeptical Inquiry, since 1976. They're the publishers of the Skeptical Inquirer. Now, I've told you that that's one of the magazines that I've subscribed to for, 30, 35 years. I don't remember when I first started, but I currently subscribe to it and get some of my inspiration for some of these stories from that magazine. Okay. They issued a statement right after the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which I think is worthy of being read to you. Okay. CFI, statement after the overturning of Roe v. Wade, is the act of a religious tribunal. The U.S. Supreme Court, in a 6-3 ruling in the case of Dobbs versus Jackson, Whole Women's Health Organization, has overturned Roe v. Wade, stripping away women's bodily autonomy and giving states the power to force women to give birth against their will. Even though this decision was largely expected after a leak of an early draft opinion in May, it is no less crushing. Dissenting Justices Elena Kagan, Sonia Sotomayor, and Stephen Breyer wrote, quote unquote, with sorrow, that the result of this decision is the curtailment of women's rights and of their status as free and equal citizens. Make no mistake, today's ruling was not the act of a secular court, but of a religious tribunal. All right? The 6 justices who ruled to take away women's right to abortion did not do so because of good faith interpretations of the Constitution or due to any fact-based debate about when human life begins. No, the Supreme Court is inviting religious dogma to override the rights, health, and lives of women. I've said all along that all religions are at their root misogynistic, and I stand by that. The only exception that I might consider is the Wiccan religion, and I don't know enough about it to comment on that. I will do some more research on that. I know that there is a Wiccan chaplain in the armed forces. I'm not sure which branch, but there is one there. Okay, I want to continue on with the CFI statement. Today, the Supreme Court deceptively used constitutional law as a subterfuge to impose religious dogma on the entire nation. This is a quote from Eddie Tabash, the board chair of CFI. Quote, millions of women are now condemned to a loss of what should be a universal right of bodily autonomy and self-determination. Excuse me. The intrusion of the police power of the state into the most intimate areas of one's private life marks the beginning of a new authoritarian era, period. We must do whatever we can to restore for all time the precious freedom that the court arbitrarily destroyed today. Okay. Oh, okay. That has been in effect since last Friday. This Friday will be the 1-week anniversary of the overturning of Roe v. Wade and the subjugation of women's bodies to the state, which Republicans are rejoicing about. Yeah, this is just water this time. Okay, good temporary news. The Civil District Court for the Parish of Orleans in the state of Louisiana have entered an injunction blocking the enforcement of Louisiana's trigger law, making abortion illegal in the state, everywhere in the state. They've put a stop to it. I don't know how long this is going to hold up, but it's good temporary news. June 27th, making abortion illegal in the state. That original decision was put into law on June 27th, 1972. The Hope Medical Group versus Jeff Landry, the Attorney General of the state of Louisiana. Okay, here is really, really good news from a guy that I've come to admire more and more and more. Jimmy Carter, ex-President Jimmy Carter. At the time he was president, he was not all that popular in this country, and in fact, Ronald Reagan beat him in 1980, in the 1980 presidential election. And I hate to admit it, but I voted for Reagan in that election. I have matured and grown and become more cognizant of what the Reagan years were all about. And I wish I could take my vote back, but you can't. Okay, anyway, the Jimmy Carter quote. The truth is that male religious leaders have had and still have an option to interpret holy teachings either to exalt or subjugate women. They have, for their own selfish ends, overwhelmingly chosen the latter. Their continuing choice provides the foundation or justification for much of the pervasive persecution and abuse of women throughout the world. Here. He's essentially saying what I've been saying all along, is religions are essentially at their foundational base misogynistic and bad news for women in general. Okay. More Supreme Court bad news. In Kennedy versus Bremerton School District, the court ruled that a high school coach can publicly pray on the field after a game, thus pressuring the team members to pray also. Now, sneaky evangelicals would never say that they're pressuring the students to pray. They would never admit to that. They are liars and cheats and, favor Trump. Okay. What if a Muslim coach decided to, after a game, haul out his prayer rug, face it towards Mecca, and then bowed toward Mecca in prayer? What would the school district say about that? Nothing good, I'm sure. Okay, prayer in school means Christian prayers in schools. Don't be fooled by evangelical cheats, masquerading as fair people and really caring about the teachings of Jesus and fairness. Why can't religious nuts just keep their faith to themselves? We are inching closer and closer to a Taliban-like theocracy. Okay, religious bashing, one of my favorite pastimes. Okay, good news, more good news, and some bad news. The MAGA head conservative Republicans are now going after drag performers and the drag queen children's story time in libraries. Uh, in Youngstown, Ohio, at a performance of the Rust Belt Theater Company, a performer and master of ceremonies for the theater company, his name is Robert Denick, Joki, Joki, and that's his last name, who performs in drag as Starlet O'Hara, was ready to introduce the next act when a man with a megaphone rushed out of the audience, shouting that she was a pervert and a monster and was grooming children. Her first instinct was to tackle him. She's a pretty big person herself. Or shout back at him. But she started singing, "Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Birds fly over the rainbow. Why then, oh, why can't I?" Forgive me, because I'm not a singer, but that's from The Wizard of Oz. Anyway, that's what Starlet O'Hara began to sing. And the audience began to sing with her, thus drowning out this Republican MAGA head and his megaphone. The audience of children and their parents, one by one, began joining in and got loud enough to drown out the Republican hate monger. He eventually ran off, and this is on June 23rd, and it was a posting on Facebook. If you want to check it out, check my Facebook posting. It's Dave, and my Facebook, I don't know what you call it, page, thread, whatever. But anyway, I posted this on there. Okay, now here is some way good news. Okay, Sadio Mane, a quote. Now, who is Sadio Mane? He is a Senegalese soccer star, and he makes 10.2 million euros annually from playing for Liverpool, their soccer club in the UK. Anyway, he's rich. I mean, he makes that every year. Okay. And he was questioned about why he was walking around with an iPhone that the cover was cracked, and he wore a pair of floppy tennis shoes and sweat clothes, and some reporter from some paper, I don't know where, asked him, why are you dressed like this, and why are you using a broken iPhone? He said, and this is the wonderful quote, "Why would I want 10 Ferraris, 20 diamond watches, and 2 jet planes? I starved. I worked in the fields, played barefoot, and I didn't go to school. Now I can help people. I prefer to build schools and give poor people food or clothing. I have built schools and a stadium, provided clothes, shoes, and food for people in extreme poverty. In addition, I give 70 euros per month to all people from a very poor Senegalese region in order to contribute to their family economy. I do not need to display luxury cars, luxury homes, trips, and even planes. I prefer that my people receive some of what life has given me. Oh, he needs to be recognized, as I don't know, by Time magazine as one of the 100 most generous people on earth. Every year, well, Time magazine has like the 100 most influential, the 100 most, I don't know what they call them, famous people, the 100 most influential. Anyway, he should be recognized somehow, if not by Time magazine, by somebody else. Okay, good man, a good man. He would never be a member of the Republican Party. Okay. Good news, more good news. Boy, there's a lot of good news on this broadcast. Quick time check. Okay. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi received communion from Pope Francis today, this day that I'm recording this show, Wednesday, the 29th. Okay. She and her husband were seated in a special VIP section of the Basilica and received communion along with the rest of the congregants. I'm glad to see that. And, I'm not a religious guy, as you probably figured out by now. And I'm certainly not pro-Catholic, but the evil MAGA-head Archbishop of San Francisco, Salvatore Cordileone, has denied her communion because of Pelosi's speaking out for women's rights to control their own bodies, aka abortion rights. And this guy, when he was appointed Archbishop of San Francisco, has been just bad news from the start. He's a right-wing zealot, very conservative, anti-LGBTQ. Okay, it wasn't Pope Francis that appointed him. I forget the name of the Pope before Francis. But Cordileone needs to just go away. He was passed over for a promotion to cardinal about a month ago when Pope Francis announced his sea of appointees to that lofty status. Anyway, he was passed over. Yay. Okay. All right. Hero of the year so far, Cassidy Hutchinson. The highlights of her testimony yesterday, if you didn't see it or hear it or whatever, I'm not going to go into everything she said, but she is one of my personal heroes now. She's 26, and she was up before the January 6th committee, who are investigating the crimes perpetrated by the orange sociopathic bloat bag. Okay, here's the highlights of her testimony. Trump ordered that metal detectors, or MOGs as they say, be removed at the ellipse where he was to speak, Hutchinson recalled the president saying, "I don't effing care that they have weapons." And it was observed by, security people that there were people carrying AK-47s and Glock pistols and other, sharpened flagpoles, for God's sakes, so that they could be used as weapons. But Trump didn't care. He wanted a big crowd. And if the weapons carrying creeps were being kept out, well, it diminished the crowd. God. I don't like to say that I hate anybody, but the orange sociopathic bloat bag is somebody that I hate. If he died tomorrow, I would have an extra drink to celebrate. Okay, what else? Her testimony. Trump lunged for the steering wheel. Okay, he got into a Cadillac SUV that they use to be. The driver is part of his security detail, and the head of his security detail was sitting in the passenger seat. The orange sociopathic bloat bag was in the back seat. And he told his Secret Service security detail that I want to go to the Capitol with the mob that he had incited. And they said, "It's too dangerous, sir. We've got to go back to the West Wing." Well, that enraged him, and he lunged for the steering wheel of the presidential car when told he would not be taken to the Capitol. White House counsel Pat Cipollone worried, quote, "We're going to get charged with every crime imaginable if Trump goes to the Capitol." He said that to Cassidy, I'm sorry. And she testified to that effect in front of the January 6th investigating committee. Okay, another thing. After Trump read a story quoting Attorney General Bill Barr saying there was no election fraud, the former president angrily threw his lunch against the wall in the dining room that's just off the Oval Office. Threw his lunch against the wall, leaving broken porcelain and ketchup dripping down the wall. This is who the Republicans chose to run for president in 2016. I tell you, Republicans in 2022 just have to all be voted out of office. Let them start over, a brand new party. Let them call it, I don't know, the fiscally responsible party, or the conservative party, or I don't want to say the Libertarian Party, because most Republicans are really not libertarians, but something, just not Republican. Let them go the way of the Whigs from back in the mid-1800s. And then, the responsible Republicans. And I've said this before, I am still a registered Republican. Excuse me. The Lincoln what do they call themselves? The Lincoln Brigade or Lincoln Organization. It's a group of anti-Trumper Republicans. And most of them still call themselves Republicans, but they just are anti-Trump GOPers. They would be the core group to build a Republican Party around. The ones that I've seen interviewed on my lefty propaganda shows, plural, MSNBC, I would really consider voting for somebody that they tossed up to run for some office. Okay. Let's see. Cassidy Hutchinson, highlights of her testimony. Okay. I have a death to mourn. Okay. Margaret Keene. Okay, that was a quick time check. Okay, you might be asking yourselves, well, who's Margaret Keene? Okay. She was the wife of the painter. Oh, shoot. I'm having another brain freeze on his first name. Walter Keane. Jeez. I really hate these brain freezes. Okay, it's just something that I have to put up with and deal with. Anyway, do you remember Walter Keane back in the 60s and 70s? These kitschy waif paintings with the huge eyes. It was actually Margaret Keane that painted these things and was the inspiration for her husband, Walter Keane, to try to paint like she did. Okay, she's 94 and she just passed away. And there was a movie made about her life in 2014. She was played by Amy Adams, who portrayed her in the movie Big Eyes. I didn't see it, so the film renewed interest in her art and story. Okay, now there's an interesting twist to her relationship with Walter Keane, her husband. They earned millions of dollars in international kitsch craze a half century ago. Okay, I thought they were older than that. A half century ago, well, that's 50 years ago. That's 1970. Okay. And who inspired an epic art fraud by a husband whose claims to have executed her work were demolished in a paint-off in court. Anyway, she died on Sunday at her home in Napa, California. Yeah, that's right near here. 94. Her daughter, Jane Swigert, said the cause was heart failure. To generations of Americans with even a passing acquaintance with contemporary art, the Keane name raised images of sad children trapped in dystopian worlds of deprivation and misery. A Republican world? I'm getting snarky. Yes, dystopian worlds of deprivation and misery. They were everywhere, stacked at sidewalk art shows, found in discount stores alongside Velvet Elvis and clown pictures, staring out from souvenir stands The eyes following you like a conscience. Mrs. Keene, a reticent woman, had a talent that appealed to the masses but not to art lovers. They made fun of those paintings, and, they're kitsch. Okay. In Woody Allen's 1973 science fiction spoof, Sleeper, the Smart Set in the year 2173 uses the single word keen to refer to great art. All right. Okay, she became a Jehovah's Witness. Man, she must have been really abused mentally by her husband, Walter. And in recent years continued to paint and sell her work at auctions and her Keen Eyes Gallery in San Francisco. I've never seen that. I wonder when it opened. I don't know. So on and so on and so on. Okay, anyway, it goes into her biography, this article that I'm reading of. But for the YouTube people, I'm just going to quickly hold up one of these. Oh boy, this is tough. Oh, there we go. There we go. Anyway, the radio people can't see this, but you're probably better off. Okay. Good news. From the state of Ohio, the Senate race for Senate for the 2022 election. Democrat Tim Ryan leads the Trump-endorsed Republican J.D. Vance. If you don't know who he is, he's a Ivy League educated author who wrote a bestseller book that was made into a movie. It's called Hillbilly Elegy. And anyway, I don't know what motivated him to run for Senate. Originally, he was an anti-Trumper Republican, but being the creepy politician that he turned out to be, he groveled at the feet of the orange sociopathic black bloat bag, and he endorsed him. Okay. And I think he won in the Republican primary in Ohio. But anyway, the race now is between Democrat Tim Ryan and J.D. Vance. And right at this moment, like today, he leads Vance 90 by about 4 percentage points. Okay. Man, I'm having trouble with these earphones and the echo. It's just, I have a hard enough time. Well, earphones or no, but okay. Good news. Crisis pregnancy centers. Well, gee, isn't that a place where women can go to get, women's health advice and maybe abortions if they need them? Wrong. They're operated by sneaky, underhanded, evangelical Christian pro-life outfits, and they're not pro-life. I've talked about that on many shows, that pro-lifers are not pro-life. They're just pro Oh boy, another brain freeze. The names of the 8 or 16 blastocysts. Okay, that's what a little ball of cells is. Okay. Okay, that's what they're pro. All right. Crisis pregnancy centers. What's the good news? Okay, California Attorney General Rob Bonta has been warning about these misleading evangelical Christian so-called pro-life centers that trick women into believing that they want to help them. They don't. Okay. It's all part of the anti-abortion, pro-life movement. Now, two things. They aren't. Nobody is for abortion. It's a thing that should be available to women if they choose to have one. Nobody, no government entity of any kind should prohibit or regulate in any way a woman's body. It's her choice to make. All right. And these crisis pregnancy centers that are invariably run by evangelical right-wing Christian groups, they use trickery and subterfuge to get women to come into them. And they'll be flooded with pamphlets about all the alternatives. One of which is having the baby and then putting it up for adoption. No Republican will ever adopt a kid. I'm being snarky again. I'm sure that somewhere a Republican couple has adopted a kid. All right. Bad news. A Kentucky Teacher of the Year, Willie Carver. He was a teacher for 17 years. Finally gives up and quits teaching. He was teaching at Montgomery County High School in Mount Sterling, Kentucky, where he taught English and French at the high school level, and was a faculty sponsor of a club called Open Light, which was an LGBTQ friendly school club, after school club. Okay. He spoke recently before the House Subcommittee on Civil Rights and Civil Liberties back in May. That's last month. That's where I ran across his story. And I saw his testimony before the House of Representatives Civil Rights and Civil Liberties group. And he talked about a fringe group of hateful parents. They're MAGA heads, of course. He didn't say that. I'm saying that. Who accused him of grooming and shoving LGBTQ agendas down people's throats. Just displaying a little rainbow flag during Pride Month in the classroom is the equivalent to these fringe parents of shoving LGBTQ agendas down people's throats. Well, what about the MAGA heads who wear these stupid red caps with MAGA on it? Are they shoving the orange sociopathic bloat bags agenda down the throats of the rest of us? Well, probably so, especially if they're carrying their AR-15s. I need a sip. My throat is really getting dry. Excuse me. I see that I've only got a couple of minutes left. I might as well play my out music. Oh, just real quick good news. A federal court, orders the EPA to reassess cancer risks of weed killer. Well, which weed killer are we talking about? Glyphosate. What product is it in? Roundup. Who makes Roundup? Monsanto. And who is the parent company of Monsanto? The A.G. Bayer company. You know, the Bayer aspirin people. I think they're a German company. But anyway, at one point, the EPA here in this country said that they didn't find a relationship between glyphosate and cancer. Now, that was during the administration of the orange sociopathic bloat bag. The World Health Organization did find a link between glyphosate and cancer. So anyway, this federal court orders the EPA to reassess the risks of this weed killer, this horrible weed killer. Okay, here's my out music. You have been listening to The Midnight Skeptic on KPCA LP, Petaluma, California. And we're at 103.3 on the FM dial and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. Support community radio at patreon.com/Petaluma Community Access. And remember, think critically, think logically, but live joyously, and most importantly, pet your cats. Okay, I'll see you guys the first week of July, and with another batch of good news, I hope. If I run across good news, I will relay it to you. Take care.